Hey guys, stream time. Been a month, so thought time for a quick stream. Hope you guys are doing well. Looking at a few things over the last week. Very surprised by accuracy of Plan B's Bitcoin sort of projections back in the year. 20th of June this was. So we cracked sort of round about $47,000 in August, and pretty much dead on $43,000 at the end of September. And he said at the time 63 at the end of October, which we are pretty much on. So yeah, well done him, certainly. And if you believe what he's got coming, then 98k end of next month. He does call this worst case scenario as well, which is interesting. I've seen him sort of mention this a few times since, and he doesn't call it worst case scenario. So yeah, very interesting. So yeah, drop a comment in the chat. Oh, Sadiq. Is he Satoshi? Yes. Yes, we'll never know that. Always be that wonder about the Satoshi wallet, won't there, really? It's still got 1 million Bitcoin in it. If it's going to stay dormant forever, then fair enough. We had the worries sort of over the last couple of years that it was Craig Wright and it was going to be unlocked. Dump 1 million Bitcoin onto the market potentially to pay the bills. So that'd be a bit of a worry. But that seems to have died down for now. Bitcoin SV going nowhere, which is his little token. It's interesting sort of little breakdown that he shows. Again, he calls this worst case scenario, sort of not even getting into the well, I think the reds is sort of where he shows it as particularly bullish. So he's saying sort of this yellow arc as not really all that bullish, but it ends up at 135k at the end of the year. So obviously starting to potentially doubt it, as you always do, with it only being 9 weeks away. But thought the same in 2017, at the end of 2017. And 2013, never really sort of expected anything because it was still very new. But yeah, people were calling for crazy prices sort of in 2017, and then obviously towards the end started saying no, it's not going to reach those sort of prices, and then sort of within 6 weeks basically it rockets up. So we've essentially got all the ingredients with the ETFs coming out and sort of potentially more adoption. See the MasterCard news, they're sort of getting into it, and just potentially more adoption from sort of institutions all around the world. So it could still happen, whether it's end of the year or going into Q1. All is fine. Hello, Sam. Opinions on Visa. I've always thought Visa was a bit expensive, to be honest. Yeah, I've been looking at Tesla, trying to get my head around that. Visa. So we sort of take the point that they have an extremely high profit margin. Yeah, 48% net profit is difficult to sort of argue against, but yeah, forward PE of 31. It's a bit expensive. Obviously, they don't really do much of a dividend. They do buybacks instead. Fairly dominant position, but I kind of think if you're sort of particularly bullish on crypto, then you sort of inherently aren't all that bullish on Visa. Sort of thinking that crypto could potentially take some demand away from them. Sort of lower fees than Visa and MasterCard. A lot of people are offering discounts on things if you pay in crypto as opposed to Visa and MasterCard. So yeah, kind of think it's a little bit contrary to crypto. So never been all that keen, to be honest. Compounding investor, hello. When did I first get into crypto? First bought Bitcoin around mid 2013. So yes, it was very low back then. Sort of held it through the run up in 2013. Never sold any off. Didn't really know what to make of it. Held all the way through the sort of bear market in 2014, 2015. Wondering whether to sell out, and just held on. And yeah, then started to sort of diversify a little bit. Started buying some other coins, and yeah, the rest is history. Adam, hello Adam. Are you planning on selling out of ARB at the same time as the rest of your crypto? Yes, I mean, it's sort of obviously lagging a little bit so far. A little bit surprised at it, to be honest, with sort of the other miners going first, essentially. Hive, things like Hive blockchain I've got as well, going on a real run. I'll go even down today. Bitcoin's not even down particularly, moving sort of in its little up and down range, but Argo still down, and it's, what is it, 60% off the all-time high back when Bitcoin was $52,000, I believe. So yeah, certainly a late mover. They've had their sort of IPO on the NASDAQ, so I expect that's causing a few issues. But yeah, being in the ISA, I would kind of think I'd sort of wait until the very last minute, if I could, as late as I sort of dare, to try and get as much tax-free profit as I could. Sort of seems like Bitcoin's going first, and sort of the altcoins moving later on, so I'd maybe expect the miners to be sort of moving later than Bitcoin itself. Yeah, might be one that I would sort of start to average out at, but maybe I'll leave it until, I don't know, $90,000 maybe. Sort of start to take a little bit of profit on that, and then if it goes mad, then sort of probably take a little bit more. If it does sort of go bananas, then I'm not planning on holding any of Argo. I wouldn't have thought until the right the way through until the sort of Texas opening. Just sort of think the opening like Q2, Q3, when they're planning on opening, I think could be getting well into the bear market. So assuming we have a normal sort of peak and bear market, then yeah, I'm not all that keen on sort of holding, waiting for the new Texas facility while we're in the bear market. So I would kind of assume that they've run up with the Bitcoin price, and probably take all of my gain out of that, and then yeah, maybe buy back in if they drop, waiting for the Texas opening. Sadiq, if Bitcoin hits 100k, do you think alts can 5 to 10x in general? I think 10x might be a little bit little bit of a stretch, depending on the alt. 5, I would say sort of, I mean, 100k is less than a 2x from here, from Bitcoin, but I would expect maybe 3 to 4x maybe on the bullish side for things like Ethereum, maybe even Cardano is already quite big. Obviously they can shock you, but yeah, maybe the sort of smaller in the top 20, maybe 5x. I think 10x you're really looking at sort of outside of the top 50 and that sort of thing. Individual ones I presume will, you know, go bananas, but as far as sort of the whole market coming up, yeah, I think 10x is sort of really for the much smaller caps, which obviously is more risk. I've got my sort of 5 that I went with initially. New Cypher has obviously gone already, coming back down a little bit, but yeah, it's sort of done its 3 or 4x already. So yeah, you get that sort of thing out of, well, you know, as a sample of mine, 1 in 5 of them. But yeah, you can't rely on all of them to do that. Compounding investor, was it difficult buying Bitcoin in 2013? Not particularly. How easy was the process, and was I worried about security and hacking? Yeah, you are always kind of worried about that sort of thing back then. I actually bought some on blockchain.com and local Bitcoins. That seemed to be sort of one of the only places that was really feasible in the UK back then. Obviously now you've got sort of Coinbase Pro and Binance and sort of all the other different exchanges, and even sort of people like eToro and interactive brokers even now selling it. So don't think they are in the UK, but yeah, it's sort of a lot easier now. But yeah, it wasn't all that difficult really to buy back then. I was probably paying a lot more in fees. The spread, sort of buy and sell spread, was a little bit crazy, probably more like 5% even, maybe even 10% at sometimes between the buys and sells. There might have been a better sort of way to buy it at the time that I just wasn't finding. It was a little bit sort of learning the ropes. Sort of biggest mistake was not trusting the Ethereum wallets at the time. I was sort of looking at buying sort of 2 different altcoins. I was going to put 250 quid into 2 different altcoins, 125 between them, and I was looking at Ripple, Dash, and Ethereum, and I ended up going with with Ripple and Dash because I didn't trust the Ethereum wallets, and Ethereum was, hate to say, 60 pence. So obviously that would have been a lot better move. Dash and Ripple went up, to be fair, sort of many times, but yeah, would have been a lot better sort of holding Ethereum. So sometimes you just have to sort of take the risk with wallets and things that you think maybe are a little bit sketchy. If you think the platform and sort of the token should do well, go with your gut, I guess. Sadiq, when are you looking for small caps to buy for 10x potential? What are the 3 things you mainly consider? It's really sort of a couple of the coins that I bought, like Quanstamp and Cocos. They sort of seem to have a hell of a lot of adoption already, but they weren't really finding a use for the token. So sort of Cocos being the game engine type thing, they were getting a lot of development and sort of game developers already using it, but they were sort of struggling to find a real use for the token. And similar with sort of Quanstamp, they're a sort of cyber security firm. Again, sort of a lot of reasonably good audits, good sort of customers doing audits and that sort of thing. But again, struggling to sort of figure out what to do with the token. So yeah, I kind of sort of thought with those, the audience is there, and sort of figuring out something to do with the token would come second. Yeah, with New Cipher and yeah, things like Anchor, it was a little bit stab in the dark really. I was sort of watching some videos, reading some bits and pieces about the coin, but generally I would be looking at sort of adoption really. You look at the sort of tokenomics, as they say. Is it fixed supply? How much of the circulating supply of the total supply is out there? So take something like Cardano. So you've got circulating supply of 33 billion, and that's 74% of the total available. So yeah, some coins you'll sort of see this as like only 10% of the tokens are actually out there, and sort of the remainder are in locked wallets and that sort of thing. Yeah, could be sort of in the founders' wallets, could be anywhere really. So it's almost artificially inflating the current price of the token, but it's almost like sort of a heavy dilution penny stock, if you like. Sort of the current price is fine, but if they start releasing loads and loads of the remaining supply, then you can get essentially diluted. So yeah, when you look at something like Cardano, 75% nearly of it is already out there, so that's quite good. Also like not a silly number of tokens, ideally. You take sort of something like the Shiba Inu that everyone's going on about, sort of got a quadrillion tokens, which I'm pretty sure they've just done to make people think, you know, that they've got a lot. You sort of spend 100 quid on it and you've got, you know, hundreds of thousands of tokens, maybe even millions of tokens, and it just sounds good. So yeah, not really keen on that. I mean, even 45 billion is quite a lot, to be honest. Kind of like the sort of the ones in the hundreds of millions, if possible, like Ethereum and obviously Bitcoin. Compounding investor. Have you ever minted crypto or mined crypto or considered it? No. It just sort of seems too much work, to be honest. You've got sort of the risk of you know, cards and that sort of thing blowing up, something going wrong. I know there's money to be made in it. Certainly, sort of the current cost. I think people have sort of said you can buy, you know, rigs that'll pay for themselves fairly quickly. But yeah, it just seemed a little bit too risky for me. I quite like the sort of hands-off approach. Yeah, just seems a little bit better for me, buy and hold and not have to worry. You can go out and about and go on holiday, not have to worry about your rig. And yeah, it's just not for me really. Looked at the sort of contract cloud mining and that sort of thing, and just sort of whenever I was looking at them, the difficulty, the hash rate and difficulty was going up. So where they say you're going to earn X amount a month, that may end up getting diluted sort of as the hash rate expands and more people come online. So obviously people like Argo Blockchain and the other miners have also got this problem. But yeah, it's just easier to sort of hold someone like them and yeah, go with that rather than sort of the cloud mining. People used to use Genesis mining and that sort of thing, and yeah, just wasn't all that keen on that sort of thing. And as I say, I don't want to have a great big rig overheating at home, sort of worrying about whether it's going to blow up. What's your thoughts on Urus? I haven't heard of Urus. Are we talking very, very small cap? 455, so I've bought smaller ones than that, to be fair. So yeah, 52% of the circulating supply out, not too bad. 1 million tokens, so that's very, very low. That's sort of less than 5% of the max supply of Bitcoin, so that's surprisingly low. I don't know what it does. A DeFi token powering Urus. Unique crypto trading terminal used by thousands of traders worldwide. Always a little bit wary of some of these profiles, sort of bigging them up maybe a little bit too much. I mean, there's probably hundreds of these DeFi tokens all saying that they've got their own platform, all used by thousands of people. Not sure whether they all can be. But yeah, obviously sort of competition is very, very fierce. There's a reason these guys, I guess they're either very new or they haven't been able to really make it. So yeah, so they're less than a year old, sort of 7-8 months old. Yeah, doing really well recently. So was that up 10-15x in a month and a half, 2 months? So yeah, done pretty well. Nothing I would see as a red flag. I should maybe sort of try and find out how realistic that volume is, and the realistically hundreds of or realistically the thousands of traders is. You want to be sort of seeing whether that's believable. Yeah, maybe do a bit of research on that, but yeah, it doesn't look bad. Could be one that could do well or continue to do well. Obviously 15x in a month and a half can't be sniffed at, but you don't want to get yourself into a pump and dump. Hello Simon, what do you think about Palantir? I take it that is Palantir, isn't it? I can never remember the tickers. Never been keen, to be honest. Can't even sort of have looked at them before and couldn't even fathom what they do. Sort of 50 billion market cap. It's sort of cybersecurity, intelligence data type thing, but yeah, obviously fairly unprofitable. I gather they're, well, projecting to be profitable, so they haven't been up until now, but yeah, next year even sort of fairly low profit. I kind of like to be going for companies that are sort of reasonably well in profit. So forward PE of sort of 119. Obviously presume that'll come down over time, but price to sales ratio of 35. So I want to be paying ideally less than 35 times earnings. This is 35 times revenue. So yeah, if it was sort of a tiny little company, then maybe, but 50 billion already, you're sort of putting a hell of a lot of focus on basically that they're going to be an absolute giant. So yeah, not really sure. I mean, even the growth isn't sort of explosive. I mean, it's reasonable, but yeah, sort of what's that, 25-30% growth. It's not accelerating, it's just going up sort of fairly steadily. So not very keen, has to be said. Hello Mr. P, good to see you. Hello Ali. How long before a big retailer like Tesco announced they'll accept crypto? I mean, I would think you'll get probably bigger retailers like sort of the big American guys before you get someone like Tesco. I think the UK doesn't seem particularly crypto friendly. I mean, the ETF, the physically backed ETF that I bought in my ISA got banned because the Financial Conduct Authority don't like derivatives. So yeah, we used to be quite crypto friendly. We sort of had George Osborne singing its praises and saying we want to be the sort of, maybe not the hub of the world, but certainly, a place that businesses would want to come to rather than sort of going to a place like Malta. I think he sort of saw that as potentially a lot of business that could come our way. But since then, I think we've driven people away with the amount of regulation and sort of banning banks and, banks banning transactions to exchanges and all that sort of thing. So, yeah, can't see places like Tesco sort of jumping on it anytime soon. I think it'd probably be US firms more so. Mr. P, what do you think of Plan B's December Bitcoin price? Yeah, I was looking at that sort of earlier on. Do think maybe a little bit ambitious, but it's kind of what I was going for, sort of 100k. I think if we got to 135k in 2 months, maybe it's the wrong decision. Maybe it's partly because it would sort of give me enough, if I sort of had a tenth of the amount, maybe hold on for a little bit longer. But yeah, I would kind of be selling the vast majority at that sort of price. Ali, view on grow generation cannabis play. I'm not big on the cannabis sector, to be honest. You're kind of focusing quite a lot, from what I gather, on America and certain parts of America. It's not even all of America yet, unless it sort of suddenly gets legalized in other reasonable sized countries. Then yeah, it seems like a narrow bet. I'd probably wait and maybe wait even a few years just to see if the industry is actually going to grow. Simon, what do you think about the earnings in the big stocks this week? I have been reading Wall Street has potentially been sort of, I think they call it sandbagging, but sort of lowering expectations a little bit, so that then these companies sort of smash earnings. But if they've been lowering the expectations, then it's quite easy to smash the earnings. Sort of thinking growth is slowing down a little bit, and you probably know I'm a big believer in the inflation not being transitory. So yeah, I can sort of see a little bit rough times ahead. Take someone like Amazon, for all their growth, people don't seem to be all that pleased with them. So you've sort of got over a year basically now of pretty much flat earnings. So it was August last year where they sort of peaked above where they are now. You're looking at 12 months. No, more than that, 14 months since the last peak. So yeah, not sure whether this is just it settling for a bit and then going to go on a huge run. Maybe with earnings potentially starting to do well and sort of smashing the next few quarters as opposed to sort of slowing down. But yeah, I'm not sure. Over a year of flat price sort of leads me to think people aren't all that happy with them. I know Apple and Microsoft and them have been doing a little better, not all that better. But yeah, I've started to buy a little bit. I know I said they would sort of be in my doomsday portfolio, if you like. But I have bought a bit of Apple and Google in particular. When I say doomsday, I mean sort of that would be going heavier into these and sort of having, maybe 5,000 of my portfolio in each. So I just sort of opened a starter position, if you like, in them and see where it goes. Apple and Google I didn't think were terrible value really, sort of under 30 forward PEs. They are growing. So yeah, not too bad. I'm not going particularly heavy into them at the moment, but yeah, still seeing more sort of potential money printing coming, so would expect the sort of NASDAQ and the tech stuff to do reasonably well, but that's not a long-term move for me. Mr. P, will you be keeping your crypto till after the next halving, or will have exited? Yes, if we, as I say, if we get to sort of 100k and above, then I would probably be selling the vast majority. And then sort of, if, you know, considering rebuying in, if we get a reasonable size crash, a lot of people sort of thinking we could, if we do get to 200 odds, then, you know, we could settle around, I don't know, maybe 50k, maybe 40k. Yeah, and if we sort of get to that, then I would be thinking maybe allocate a smaller percentage of my overall portfolio to it, having sort of sold out. You could maybe treat it like gold and put sort of 5 to 10% in crypto as a sort of diversification, as opposed to, obviously now it's my growth engine, I suppose you'd call it. But yeah, then so I would be selling out now and then buying, hopefully buying the low, or buying around the low. Obviously you're never going to catch the bottom, and then sort of holding throughout maybe sort of late 2022 time towards the next halving and afterwards. Smash some likes on the videos. Yes, of course, that's very helpful. Thank you. So is it worth investing a small percent on Urus? I mean, it's up to you. It doesn't look bad from what I saw, but I think more sort of research would be needed on sort of how reliable the amount of traders on the whether it's an exchange or a sort of trading platform. I think I was reading. Yeah, I think a lot of these sort of companies are, you know, it's very easy to sort of put out a white paper and say, you know, you've got thousands of traders and that sort of thing. It's not necessarily real for all of them. Obviously, you've got 12,000 coins out there. I think some people are just sort of in it to try and make a quick buck. But yeah, I can't obviously can't advise you, but yeah, I've sort of obviously put a small percentage of my my portfolio in some very low cap coins, which I must admit I didn't do all that much research on. Did a little bit, and you treat it as sort of a bit of a punt that could potentially go belly up, go to zero, but you accept that. You might get one, you know, maybe two of them sort of go up more than the other ones go down, even if they go bust. Sort of a bit like, as they say with venture capital, you sort of invest in 5 and one makes it, or sometimes even you invest in 10 and one makes it, and the one, you know, goes up 20x, 30x, maybe even all the rest of the 9 go bust, but you make money overall. Obviously betting on one is a little bit more risky. Compound investing. I often see someone on YouTube repeating the message, jump aboard the Elrond rocket ship. Elrond is a sort of reasonably big token. Yeah, it's not one that I sort of have paid that much attention to. Don't really know a whole lot about it, but yeah, it's number 38, so, you know, it's certainly a reasonable token, $5.5 billion market cap, so it's a proper token. Yeah, I just don't know all that much about it, but it's a year or so old. Yeah, seen sort of reasonable moves so far. Again, sort of not horrendous figures. 31 million max supply, 63% of it's already out, so nothing that sort of, you know, shows as a particular red flag there. Not sure about rocket ship. I think everybody who's sort of invested in their own tokens like to sort of try and pump their bags for all the difference it'll make. People try and, you know, post this stuff on popular YouTubers' videos, the sort of big crypto guys, you know, your sort of BitBoy Crypto and people like that. They'll try and sort of promote and pump their coins, hoping some people buy in. But yeah, I don't think that's the case with Elrond. Obviously, it's big enough that it's not going to move the market with a few people buying in. You often see that sort of thing with the very small caps and the sort of meme stuff, to harshly call it, like Shiba and sort of Safe Moon that you had a few months ago, which seem to have all but died off in the media. But yeah. Ali, is Solana worth investing in? Oh, it's one that I've missed, certainly. I mean, it's a platform token, so it's competing with Ethereum and Cardano, Polkadot as well. Starting to get a fair bit of competition with all of these coins, but yeah, sort of $207, $208. I mean, just in the last month, it's ran up a fair bit, and yeah, where were we? A year ago, it was $1.70. So you're obviously taking a hell of a lot more risk with it now. $62 billion market cap now. So it's number 6. It's rising up. Yeah, so what has it got above it? So it's overtaken XRP, it's overtaken Polkadot. Yeah, Tether doesn't really count as a stable coin. So all it's got is Cardano, Binance Coin and Ethereum, and obviously Bitcoin above it now. So yeah, it's not one that I've looked into tremendously. I know they're sort of bigger on NFT side. Not really all that keen on the NFTs. I think it's a little bit of a bubble. People paying $1 million and more for sort of a, to put it bluntly, fairly crappy JPEG image. Yeah, just so you can say it's yours and it's one of a kind and all that. Yeah, not really all that keen on that side of things. I know they do more than just NFTs, but it seems to be the sort of main one for NFTs at the moment. But yeah, certainly seems a strong token, but not one that I'd be looking to get into at this late stage. I just sort of look at things like that and think, yeah, fair enough, I've probably missed it. Don't really want to take the risk at this stage of buying sort of a new one like that. Mr. P, what do you think about Trump's new SPAC for the Truth Social? Yeah, not really all that keen on Trump, to be honest. No, he's always sort of said, you know, the media is terrible and it's fake news and that sort of thing. Yeah, not really keen on that sort of thing. Not really keen on SPACs in general. But yeah, it's had a hell of a move. People are done well. I think 3D printing is the future. I do think it could do well. I'm not sure sort of how well, really. Desktop metal. Don't really have any stocks in that sort of area. I take it this is a sort of, I know this a Cathy Wood type stock. I know she's got a 3D printing ETF, hasn't she? So yeah, small cap, fairly new, growing revenue, I guess. not tremendously. So 2019 shrunk in 2020 and then has then gone up, but yeah, fairly small cap, 44 times sales. Yeah, I think I'd rather go for a sort of a bigger cap stock if there is one. Not really knowing enough about them, but yeah, not 100% convinced by 3D printing really. I sort of wonder if it's almost like the 3D sort of trade itself. You know, we've had all the 3D glasses and that sort of thing, sort of had all that, from what I gather, in the 60s and back in the sort of 80s again, and now sort of the whole 3D TVs in the last few years seems to have near enough died a death. Sort of moved on to VR a little bit, I guess, but yeah, not sort of for how long they've been out, I don't really see all that much news on sort of 3D printing. Maybe it's just in the business space for now and sort of still in development, but yeah, if it is the future, I sort of feel like it's maybe a way away. Have a look at Phantom. Phantom is one that I remember from a while ago, but never really looked all that much on, to be honest. Number 26. So that's presumably done fairly well. Sure, it was an older coin. Yes, sort of a very small cap for a very long while. But yeah, sort of, what is that, 3 years old, and has then just started to rocket up. I don't know the news on this, to be honest, but yeah, so what is that, $3, and 3 months ago it was 17 cents. So yeah, you're looking at 20x in 3 months. Possibly a little bit overblown. Don't even know what they do, to be honest. It's come out of nowhere. A directed acyclic graph smart contract platform. DeFi is what I mean. Everyone you look at is sort of providing decentralized finance services to developers. Yeah, I'm really probably not the one to be asking about the sort of newer small caps and that sort of thing. And I'm a little bit wary of these sort of DeFi tokens. As I say, there just seems so much competition. I'm sort of sticking with mainly with the large caps. Ethereum sort of first mover advantage and that sort of thing. I think sort of a lot of tokens do end up piggybacking off Ethereum's network and that sort of thing. The sort of second layer DeFi stuff that's essentially still built on Ethereum. So yeah, you can gamble on this sort of stuff, but you got to know you're taking a gamble, and especially with that sort of price run up, it's not something you can sort of hold for, you know, if the cycles are going to go sort of as normal with a sort of blow off top and then a bear market. It's not something you can sort of buy and hold for a year, if you like, because next year we'd be expecting to be probably deep into the bear market. So yeah, buying sort of after this sort of price run up, always a little bit too risky for me, to be honest. Maybe one to put on the watch list and sort of think about rebuying if we do get a reasonable bear market. Price prediction on Cardano. I think this cycle could probably see, if everything goes to plan, maybe 3 or 4x. So yeah, sort of $7, $8 maybe. Sort of been lagging for a little while, but I think if they can sort of start releasing fair few more applications, then yeah, I think they certainly could do well. I think sort of 3 or 4x, maybe it might be sort of a laggard, maybe not by Christmas, it might be by sort of the end of Q1, sort of February, March time. But yeah, I think sort of $7 or $8 certainly doable. I don't really do long term. Sort of 2025 is probably a little bit too long term, to be honest. I mean, we don't even know if some of these are going to be around then. Obviously, there's a hell of a lot of competition even today for things like Cardano, and you've seen with things like Solano. A token can start up tomorrow and by 2025 be a complete Cardano killer. So yeah, I don't really like to sort of give predictions much more than a couple of years, really, even a year. You invest in big boring blue chips and hardly ever need to monitor prices. How often do you monitor your crypto prices? Does it ever get stressful when there are big movements? I wouldn't say stressful. I do monitor it, sort of most days, to be honest. Probably a little bit more than I should, but it's only really because I'm sort of getting close to hitting my goals, and sometimes these things can sort of rocket up on you, and then you suddenly want to get out. I'm not trading as such. If I generally, when I'm getting out now, that is it. I'm getting out. I sold Dogecoin when it was sort of going up. It just went up crazy. No real intention of getting back in now that it's dropped back. So yeah, I do monitor a reasonable amount, but the idea is to sort of grow that portfolio, move into stocks, and then have a portfolio that I won't need to monitor quite as often. Yeah, that's the idea. What do you think about owning MicroStrategy due to how much Bitcoin they have on the balance sheet? Does actually seem surprisingly, obviously people will say it's crazy overpriced and that sort of thing, but yeah, if you exclude the Bitcoin, I don't think they look too bad. And obviously it's physical Bitcoin as opposed to the ETF. So as you say, no fee, no, well, there is a tracking error because we're saying they're sort of worth a fair amount even without the Bitcoin, or you'd expect them to be worth more considering their Bitcoin. So yeah, it may not track the Bitcoin price entirely, but you're saving on the fee, and yeah, I don't have all that much confidence in the futures ETFs. If you're from the UK, I don't even think we can buy them at the moment. So yeah, something like MicroStrategy sort of seems reasonable. Can't remember. Look up Bitcoin Treasury. So MacroStrategy, they can't even spell it. Yeah, so they've got 114,000 Bitcoin, value today of 7.081 billion. So they're valuing the whole of the rest of the company at sort of $500 million, which not really horrendous, to be honest. So what they got, the actual company has got, I guess this is probably maybe funny business going on with the crypto. Whether they've got, I would have thought there's special income charges. Yeah, so impairment of capital assets. So this is all crypto related. But yeah, so you look at like operating income, 72 million. So they're trading at sort of, 7-8 times operating income, excluding the Bitcoin. So it's a reasonable sort of tech company, from what I gather, trading at sort of 7 times operating income if you're willing to exclude all of the Bitcoin on the balance sheet. And obviously, if you think it's going to go up, the Bitcoin's going to go up, then it should track it reasonably well without a fee and available in an ISA. So certainly not bad. I think before it was trading at quite a premium to the amount of Bitcoin that they were holding. But whether people would prefer to hold the ETFs, I don't know. But yeah, I certainly think that's a reasonable option if you want something in your ISA or something other than the miners. Personally, I prefer the miners because it's probably a little bit more leveraged on Bitcoin. Obviously, MicroStrategy just hold it, so it's only really going to go up sort of as much as what they hold, unless people want to put a higher multiple on it. Whereas the miners, obviously, you're betting on future revenue going up as well, so they're always sort of generally going to go up more than Bitcoin goes up, just like a gold and silver miner. So interesting though. Didn't realise they were trading quite as close to their Bitcoin holding. I'm not sure you'll see a spot ETF really anytime soon though. Not in the UK at least. You may get, obviously, as I say, you've got the US ones out now, but don't think they're available to buy in the US because it's derivatives. So even the German one, which was a spot ETF holding physical, the Financial Conduct Authority still call it derivatives, even though it isn't really. So yeah, even if you get spot ETFs, no guarantee that they'll be allowed. Adam, I feel like you need to hold my hand through the next 2 to 3 months. No, you should be fine. Can't see too much that's going to be wrong. Always happy to answer questions. Like I say, you can drop a comment in any of the videos if you want to ask if things are going a bit mad. As I say, I've been looking at the Morgan Stanley research for Tesla, just trying to get my head around it. Sort of this projections of profits and revenue and that sort of thing. I know people are probably going to say this is bearish. So they're showing 3.5 million cars in 2025. Maybe that's a bit low. Don't know, but this is sort of maybe the bearish case, and they say this is excluding energy, insurance and that sort of thing. Anything else they would do with batteries. But yeah, so this is sort of projecting 20 billion revenue, 20 billion net income in 2025. So that would sort of give it a price to earnings in 2025 of, or if you said, say 50 times earnings in 2025, which would be still fairly bullish, far more than sort of your Microsofts and people like that. That still takes you to $1 trillion, which is pretty much today's market cap. So you're saying in 2025, 50 times earnings is still today's market cap. So you've got to be expecting either a hell of a lot more to be coming from these other items that they're excluding, or you're expecting a lot more than 3.5 million vehicles, or you're willing to pay more than 50 times earnings in 2025, which, if people are expecting the growth that they're expecting, they're going to be probably bigger than Microsoft in market cap, maybe even potentially bigger than Apple, and you're still willing to pay sort of maybe 75 times forward earnings. So yeah, it just seems hell of a lot has got to all pan out well for prices to carry on going up. So I've got my 3 shares, obviously looking at how much more I let it go up before getting out. So I'm 30% up at the moment. Did this back in sort of last year, going into December, January time. Sort of sold at 100% up at about $750. And yeah, then it sort of went up a little bit, up to 900, and then sort of dropped all the way through the summer. And it took sort of 9-10 months to get back to what I sold it at. So yeah, kind of wondering if we sort of going to start doing this again. If we get into maybe $1,100-$1,200, then yeah, I think I'd have to think about sort of maybe cutting that again and rebuying later on. Still not all that comfortable having this growth in my portfolio, but have to diversify. I've been getting criticised about it on Discord. I don't think people quite understand the diversification. So sort of talking about a 600 grand portfolio, obviously over half of that in crypto at the moment, but I still think of it as a 600k total portfolio. So yeah, I've got 0.3% of that in Tesla. It's not exactly a huge sum overall. And yeah, sort of realising that I've got very little growth in there other than them. Bought a little bit of Apple and Google to add to it. I've got my Chinese sort of tech growth stocks, which almost don't even count as growth stocks anymore, with their sort of low value. I would sort of see that as reasonably priced stocks, as opposed to sort of high growth multiple, even if they are high growth in revenue. I've got the ARC genomic pie, and yeah, maybe things like sort of Taiwan Semiconductor. That's about it, really. So yeah, I kind of thought I needed a little bit more sort of growth just for diversification purposes. So got Tesla and Apple and Google. Might add to it if certainly if crypto goes up. Then if I'm selling down some crypto, then I might want to have a little bit more growth. Don't want to be putting sort of 300,000+ just into sort of cheap value stocks and dividend stocks. Probably have a little bit of growth in there. So yeah, not sure whether I would add to this at these prices. Maybe add some more to the Apples and Googles and that sort of thing. More Taiwan Semiconductor. But we'll see. You think over the long term more money will move from stocks and gold and bonds into crypto? I'm not 100% sure about gold. I don't think stocks money would really move into crypto all that much, but bonds I could certainly see happening. So you've got, I mean, a lot of people don't know the total bond market is bigger than the global stock market. I think you're sort of talking, including certain government bonds that would never be really sold, but yeah, I think you're talking $120 trillion, where sort of global stock market's about 90 to 95. So yeah, there's a hell of a lot in bonds, which at the moment presumably don't look all that attractive. I think about 20 trillion of that is in negative yielding bonds. So yeah, I think you could certainly see some of that sort of come out and go into crypto if it starts to mature more and is seen more as a proper asset class. But yeah, probably not stocks, and yeah, gold's only really, I say only 10 trillion at the moment, but I think the people that like it really like it. Central banks aren't going to get rid of it. The Indians really, really like their gold, and the Chinese sort of, yeah, they want their holding. I'm a big believer that they haven't got 1,800 tons, or whatever it is. Yeah, 1,800 tons. I expect that's more like 20,000 tons. So, yes. Would I consider buying a Tesla? Not at the moment. I quite like small cars, to be honest. They don't really do one. Model 3's too big for me, even if I was gonna buy something. I'm looking to buy sort of something ideally as my next car at about sort of 10 to 15,000 really. So yeah, Tesla are a bit out of the price range. Obviously I can afford one, but I'm not going to just throw money away on it. Even if they come out with a sort of 25k model, I don't really like the look of the current sort of ones that they've got, so can't imagine they would come out with something particularly nice. And I don't think the charging infrastructure is really there. Obviously don't have a charging point on my house. I think I would rather just get a normal sort of petrol, something a little bit fun for my next car, and then maybe the one after that go electric. But probably not Tesla even then, unless they've bought a compelling small car out. But yeah, seeing a hell of a lot of them around now. Ali, what do I do for a living? I'm in construction in the office. Yeah, shan't say too much more than that, but yeah, it's sort of relatively basic job. I'm on the basic tax bracket, 20% tax, so nothing particularly fancy. All right, so we're 9:05. I'll give it a minute or two and just wait for any last questions and probably sign off there. See where we are on the old crypto. It's coming down a little bit today. 61,944. Not too bad on the altcoins though. Thought the VanEck ETF was supposed to debut. I thought they said yesterday, and then they've said today, but haven't seen it on Yahoo Finance or anywhere else, so maybe it's been delayed. The Valkyrie one doesn't seem to have so far provided a huge amount of bullish activity. I have seen the as I say, the news about the limits being reached on the futures contract, and the changes that they've made are for the November contract, so don't know whether we need to actually get into November before it sort of really starts taking an effect, or whether it is going to have an effect. Maybe it was sort of people buying spot in anticipation of the futures ETFs. Seemed to tie up reasonably well with the timing when the ETFs opened, but doesn't necessarily mean it was that. We'll see. Maybe the VanEck one will open tomorrow. Thank you. Have a good night. Yes, thanks for the live stream. Yes, I'll see you guys soon then. Thank you all for coming. Always happy to answer your questions. And have a nice night. You missed the answer, Ali. Yes, construction. Yes, construction job in the office, and as I say, sort of on the basic tax bracket. So yeah, nothing particularly fancy. So yes, I'll see you guys soon. Best of luck for the week, and yes. How do I know so much about everything? A lot of research, probably lockdown has helped. Yeah, had a lot of time to sort of look over things in the last year. Don't have kids, so it's a lot of more free time than a lot of people would have, I guess. All right, well, yeah, catch up with you guys soon. See you in the next video.